Day panel here at Sandy Creek Nature Center. So first what we're going to do is we have a host of these lovely lady scientists here, and they're going to introduce themselves. They're going to talk about their field of science, and then I'm going to ask some questions to everyone. They're going to be answering these questions for us. Please feel free that if you're on Facebook, that you can go into Facebook Live in the chat and feel free to ask some questions, and Kate is monitoring that for us, so she'll be able to give us those questions so that we can ask you. And ladies, if we want to start, if everyone could go ahead and introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about your field of science. And if we want to start with Amber, you can go ahead and start if you want to.
Sure. Thank you so much for hosting this event. I'm really looking forward to hearing more from all of these panelists. I'm a geographer. So I'm actually an assistant professor at the University of North Georgia, and the way I use geography is I use geospatial science. So it's lots of mapping, remote sensing using satellites and aerial photos, and I study water. So I particularly look at the connection between how people are affecting our water systems within Georgia, all across the Southeast, and really nationally as well.
Very good. Thank you. I'm really excited about that because I was a GIS major. So, and let's see, Dr. Mobasher, would you like to tell us about you?
Sure. Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy Mobasher. I am a professor of geology at University of North Georgia. Teach mainly geology, and also I teach some GIS courses as well. So it's studying rocks and earth material. So that's my major field of study.
I'll go next. I'm Leslie Bobby, and I work in forestry. So my background is in forestry ecology, but what I do is I help to translate forestry research for all the different people who need to use it on the ground. So for the foresters and all the private forest landowners across the South. So I can help them, give them the information they need to better manage their land and protect those forests that we also benefit from.
Very good. Thank you. Margie, would you like to go next?
Okay. Hi, I'm Marty Flood. I'm an associate professor at University of North Georgia. My background is freshwater ecology, and I work with invertebrate critters in streams and a little bit of fish. And I try to get people to understand the importance of good biodiversity in streams, along with teaching the occasional environmental science class.
Awesome. And then Angela, hi, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Angela Burrow. I'm a recent graduate in forestry and natural resources. My work is with wildlife, mainly amphibians. So I work in wetlands and looking mostly at how disturbance and other kinds of environmental change affect amphibians and their habitats.
Very good. And then Maggie, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Maggie Hunt. I'm a wildlife biologist with the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. I work in wildlife resources in the non-game or wildlife conservation section. My main responsibilities with the department are environmental review and bat research. So I help review infrastructure or development projects for the state and inform developers and also the public on conservation regulations and species data. And I also do bat research. So we look at researching bat population status in the state and use that research to help conserve our bat species in Georgia.
Very good. Thank you all so much. We have a nice diversity of all fields of science here. So I would like us to talk about, or you all can tell us how you became interested in your particular field of science. And Does anybody want to go first? Yeah, anyone? Well, I can just call on you guys then. Okay, Caddy, you want to go?
I go first.
Okay.
Mine is interesting. I wanted to be a doctor. So I was studying to become a geologist. Now she's in medical field. I became a geologist, so I switched somehow. But I remember the first class I took, they showed us a really large, simple black rock with nothing on it. And then they showed us a sliced piece of this rock, and I looked at it under, it's called polarized microscope, uses polarizing light. And that I said, I want to know more. This is so interesting. It's completely different world. It was all colorful, beautiful under microscope. And I said, I just cannot stop. I have to learn more about this. So I stayed and I became a geologist.
I love that. Thank you so much. Angela, you want to tell us a little bit?
Sure. So I actually I was a non-traditional student. I almost said am, but I am actually a formal student now. Still trying to get used to that. But I went back to school because I was really tired of my job as a medical records person. And I thought, well, let me teach biology. I love animals. I love the outdoors. And I was shocked how little biology classes were required for a biology education undergraduate degree. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to just take the full biology degree, and then I'll at least know what I'm talking about when I go to teach. And my school required you do research. And that was the hook. I got to go out to the Mojave Desert. And at that time, it was just working with little wasps that lay their eggs inside the egg of a caterpillar, and just all those interactions. I was just like, this is an amazing puzzle. And also just being with people that didn't think it was weird to love science and want to talk about it pretty much all the time. And I just was like, you know what, this is my tribe. And I just then naturally fell into amphibians because they're just so darn cute.
I love that too, because I love toads and frogs as well, and salamanders. So yes. Leslie, do you want to tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. I grew up in Chicago, so I was an urban child, and I just really kind of liked being outside. And I also considered, going into medicine, and then spent a couple years in the Peace Corps teaching farmers about how to plant trees and their crop systems, and just got hooked on being outside. And so it just one path led to another to kind of draw me into forestry. But overall, it's just a love of being outside and caring for nature and all the natural resources that support us.
Very good. I love that too, because I think most people know I love going outside as well. So that's awesome. Maggie, you want to tell us about how you got interested in bats, especially?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I was always interested in wildlife and animals growing up as well. I was one of the outdoor kids, always outside, picking at the dirt and bugs and stuff. But I guess I was a bit of a late bloomer in that I did not really get involved in bat research or conservation ecology until graduate school. That was really where I got involved with like the Georgia Bat Working Group, and my graduate research had to do with fire ecology and conservation ecology, and it was something I'd always wanted to do but never had a true path to until graduate school. I just fell in love with the research and the topics, and just being able to learn every day.
Very good. Thank you so much. Amber, do you want to tell us about how you got involved?
Sure. Actually, it was after my undergraduate as well. I went and hiked the Appalachian Trail and used maps, right? Like utilized maps and relied on it. This was before everyone had smartphones for hiking, so we really needed them out there. And I fell in love with the maps, and then afterward got a job, kind of volunteered my way into Nature Serve and did conservation GIS work for 3 years. And that's how I really found my love of geography and building things online. So it was a little bit of a combination of just loving maps themselves, and then really loving the people in community that I found that were working in these environmental nonprofit groups, and how welcoming and driven that community of people really was. So.
Very good. And Margie, would you like to finish this off with this?
Okay. Sometimes I say that it's karma because my last name is Flood and I grew up in a town called Watertown. But in reality, I grew up in a rural area. There was land that belonged to my grandfather that had a creek in it, and I loved to play in the water and play with the critters in the water. When I was in college, I did an internship, and when I was a junior at the New England Aquarium, and when I was a senior, I took an invertebrate class that all my friends told me, don't take it, it's hard, and I loved it. But I still didn't see it as a career. I went into the Peace Corps, I worked with fish. I came back, decided, you know, maybe I really do need a job. And I looked into graduate school, and I sort of took it from there with invertebrates and fishes and water.
That's awesome. All right. Thank you all for that. Let's see. The next question is, do you have any childhood memories or experiences that helped to develop your love of science? Does anybody want to start us off with that?
I can talk about Tapiola.
Okay.
This was land that was on my grandfather's farm. It's still in my family. It's been in my family for over 100 years. It's not a very big chunk of land, but it's a beautiful little creek. And this, you couldn't do it today because my mother would drop 6 or 7 kids from the neighborhood off in this creek, and we'd play for 4 hours and then walk 4 hours or 4 miles home. And it was wonderful being outside and playing in the water.
Awesome. Does anybody want to go next?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a city, in a neighborhood, similar to neighborhoods in Athens. And, I found a vacant lot I would play in, and you can discover all sorts of things in a vacant lot, or a little abandoned area with trees where we'd ride bikes. And, that felt, wild to me to some degree, because my parents and family were not outdoorsy people. So I had to find nature in these little pockets. And so, I think everybody, who's watching this right now has their own little pockets that they can find to discover, even if it's super small.
Very good. Anybody else want to go next?
I wanted to say something that was surprising that came to mind, is how important watching things like Nova and kind of having a constant little feed of information in my childhood really helped normalize science as something exciting and something that people would be interested in, and having some National Geographic magazines around the house and sort of flipping through that really has made a difference for me over time. And I also remember going out stargazing was a huge impact, and going to try to see meteor showers. I lived down in Miami, so we'd go out to the Everglades. But those little experiences I still remember really well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, to sort of piggyback off of that, I think a great influence in my childhood was growing up watching people like Jeff Corwin on Saturday morning TV, who's a wildlife biologist who basically introduced conservation and was really passionate about it, and spoke to, I think, a lot of people in my generation, and kind of ignited that passion in us as well.
Very good. Angela or Caddy, y'all want to go?
Sure, I can go. So as a kid, similar to others, I actually spent a lot of time outdoors. I grew up in Florida, where it's wet and muggy almost the whole year round. So that means there's lots of animals, whether they're, insects or, lots of frogs and toads. And I also rode horses a lot, and we would take them out to the lakes and go swimming around and check out all the strange creatures that were there with us. So just constantly spending all my free time in the outdoors was a real, it sparked a curiosity that I don't think I will ever be able to extinguish.
That's awesome. All right. Caddy, you want to finish this off?
Yes, I never noticed geology, I'm going to be honest, until I saw that rock under a microscope. but I feel like maybe my family, my father was a professor, my grandfather was, I think questions they asked me, they helped me to think about things, and that started for me to be curious about things and try to find answers. I think the rock that I mentioned, it was like a puzzle and I wanted to solve it. And I think it all comes back from my family asking a lot of questions or explaining things. And then for me, it become a habit of trying to find questions and find answers. I think that's what started it for me.
Very good. Let's see. I think this one's kind of a difficult question, but I wanted to go ahead and ask this one because I wanted to know if you've ever had any kind of failures in your jobs or in your field of science, because I think it's important for kids to realize that it's okay to fail sometimes, and we all make mistakes because we're human. And then you could kind of do a follow-up with that if you talk about kind of a failure or sometime that you just, it didn't work out, then kind of follow it up with something that was really good and that was very positive. So I because like I said, I think it's really important for kids to realize it's okay to make mistakes. That's what science is all about, right? Is just trying it out, and you're not going to get it right every time. So does somebody want to start us off with that?
I would be happy to start off with that. I think everyone was like ready to click though, because it is really part of science. It's just the way it goes. But I actually have a really great story that the positive and the negative go together. So one of my research projects for my PhD, I was trying to look at how plants in the terrestrial environment, so up in the forest, affect frogs and how they can survive. And so I tried this study where I had cages out in the woods. And I mean, this is months of planning to build those cages and get the equipment together and the permits. And in 24 hours, all my frogs were dead because of ants. They just got attacked by these ants. And I spent a long time down in that field trying to figure out how do I keep these ants out so I could look at the plants, like what effect the plants are having. Because, frogs, they have really permeable skin, so that if they lose too much water, they can die. But I couldn't even look at that because my frogs were just getting killed by these ants. And so I finally had to give up, had to go home. I had nothing, no data at all. And frogs, they only breed once a year, so it's not like a lab science where you can just try again. I had to wait a whole nother year to try again. And this time I tried where I live here in Athens, and the land managers actually spread ant bait to get rid of all the ants months before my study was supposed to begin. And I don't know if you remember the year of the month of May of rain. It rained all May. Like there was almost not a single day that it didn't rain. And rain deactivates ant bait. So my frogs died again. But in the meantime, I had started to look up these ants that were at my original study site in South Georgia. And these ants turned out not to be fire ants, but a native ant that's associated with disturbance. So if you disturb the soil, these ants get super high in abundance. And let me tell you, when I sat down on the ground, I would be covered in ants, but they don't sting. They're non-stinging ants. And I'm looking up, and these ants, no one says they can kill frogs, but they're killing my frogs. And I checked with an ant expert, and I have the email saved. He said, there's no way these ants can take down a frog. And I finally said, you know what I'm seeing, I'm going to believe. And so the next year, the third time, I incorporated those ants into my study and was able to show that they actually can have a significant impact on sites where we've had a lot of disturbance on the survival of juvenile frogs, and they can take down a frog. So the positive and the negative, that research was just published, so it's very exciting. But let me tell you, those first 2 years, I mean, I was crying. It was heartbreaking. But you just have to stick with it. If you've got something in your mind that you really want to follow through, just stick with it, because it can really turn out to be something really wonderful.
Very good. Thank you so much for that. Would anybody else like to share? Margie, did you? You kind of acted like, yeah.
Well, I was thinking of several failures during my master's, but there wasn't necessarily a good comeback for that. But one of the things that I think I see with a lot of students and that I absolutely went through myself is developing the skill to teach, to talk in front of a group of people. And I can look at me all through college and even the first couple of years. It amazes me that I actually joined the Peace Corps when I was so shy. But the first year that I taught as a graduate student, if I had not been paired with 2 other graduate students who were phenomenal teachers, I wouldn't be here today because I was terrified. And this is something that you get better at. You may not be the best teacher for the first semester or the first 5 years, but if you work at it, you will get better.
Very good. Let's see.
I can
Maggie.
share a story.
Okay, good. Thank you, Amber.
Okay, sure. So for my PhD research, I wanted to collect a lot of field data. For some of my master's work, I was using more data I could download online from all these different sources. And in my doctoral program, I thought, let me go get out in the field. And I did a lot of different types of field research. But one of the things I did is I purchased dozens and dozens of little temperature collectors that I could put out in the streams and monitor the temperature. It recorded data every 15 minutes and had them out there for a year, and I'd go and collect the data. What that taught me is how easy it is to lose some of your field equipment because of how variable the streams are. You know, if you have a really strong flow event and a lot of rain, you can see it with the data and you can go out and see it sometimes, but it really helped me understand the power of these streams because I lost about half of my little sensors that I had purchased in this endeavor. And I learned a lot from that experience. And one of them is the variability of streams. But another thing was how important it is to QC your data, and wherever you get it, how, it's okay to throw out anything that you don't have full confidence in, because a lot of times when you're out in the field, you see how complex a system can be and how it's really hard to get something that's consistent over long periods. But I still think all of those little sensors, because yes, the loss rate was really high.
What is QC?
Oh, so to quality control, to make sure that your data is really good. Great question. I wanted to not get used too much jargon there. I know a lot of researchers in geography. There's all sorts of things you can study, and climatology, meteorology is really popular, for example. And a lot of people will just download their data from different sources, government sources that collect information. But it's always important, if you're not collecting it yourself, go through and validate and make sure that you get rid of any outliers, anything that doesn't really make sense and fit with your data to validate that it's true. So that was an important science lesson for me.
I didn't have any especially big failures. I definitely had small moments, but just going along with what everyone else has said, I did research for my master's degree in Alaska, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And so we would go out in a big truck, drive the roads, and we would drive 5 hours away to go to these research plots. And so we really had to prepare and think about what we were carrying with us, because if we didn't have the right things, then we would have wasted a lot of time. So I would say, there's the checklist is extremely, extremely important, and figuring out what those checklists are, or being ready to adapt as you can. So I think my only small hiccup one time was we had a grizzly bear at one of our sites. So we didn't visit that site. We passed it by. There's only one grizzly bear in all the different sites I visited over the years. But yeah, and we just had to come back later, but definitely had to let go of that one at the time.
Does anybody else have something? Yeah.
I had one. I mean, I have many. Who goes to science and doesn't have many failure? But the thing about it is that you have to find a way to change it around and get the result out of it. But one of the things was that I was about 2-3 weeks before I defend my dissertation for my PhD, and I was working with a lot of process remote satellite images and then some GIS data. and they were stored on my external hard drive. And that crashed 3 weeks before my defense. I learned my lesson. Back up, back up.
Yeah.
Work, you know, you always find a way to change things around and make it work. So that's what I did.
Very good.
So I guess I can close it out. I'll take a moment to talk about the importance of negative findings, which is something that you don't always hear about or realize until you started your career as a scientist. So something we do to help monitor our bat populations in Georgia is we will go out and perform what we call mist net surveys, where we put up mist nets and suitable habitat for bats and try to catch bats. And in the southeast, Georgia has a lot of species of bats that are native to our state, but not quite as many as other states in the southeast like Tennessee or Kentucky. So we don't always catch a lot of bats. And sometimes we catch no bats at all. And that's what we call getting skunked. So you'll sit out for 8 hours one night, hoping to, catch bats that you can process and collect data on, maybe band, so you can catch them at a later time. So it's really disappointing when that doesn't happen and you spend all this effort putting up mist nets and sitting out all night and you don't get any bats at all. But that data is still really important in our database because if we go back to that same site later and still don't catch any bats or we do end up catching bats in the future, that plays into the patterns we can pull from our data during analysis. And this is also something that I experienced in my graduate research. You want to find significant results with your research and be able to publish a paper that has some great hypothesis proven. But I had negative results from my graduate research where we did not find significant differences between I was looking at acoustic activity in prescribed burned areas for bats, and we didn't find any significant differences between areas that were burned and areas that weren't. So there wasn't much to say about it, but besides, we did this study and we didn't really find anything. So, but that's still an important baseline. So even when, you might feel like that's a failure as a researcher, it's still very important to help build a baseline and provide something that researchers in the future can then build off of to make conjectures.
Very good. Thank you so much, ladies. Can you all tell me about maybe some mentors that you've had throughout your career or education, or like support or anything from the scientific community? Because I know as women, sometimes it's not easy for some of us to find, but I think it's really important to realize that that things are trying to change, and sometimes we can find a lot more support now for women in science. So if you guys could kind of share some of your experiences with, like I said, a mentor or a support system that you've experienced in the science career. Does anybody want to start off?
I can go first. Okay. So geology was for a very long time a male field. There are not many women. When I was getting my undergrad degree, in a cohort of 50, there were only 8 women. For my master out of 15, I was the only woman. I never had any female professor. So it was kind of challenging. I was saying, am I in a real field? But I learned that I knew I had to keep going. But when I came here to US, because these are all in Iran back home, and when I came to US, still I had mostly male professors, but there was one female professor, Dr. Pamela Burnley, that Margie, I keep telling you, you remind me of her. she just looking up to her. She was so strong, and I really just watched her, what she was doing, and she was helping me a lot. So I think she played a big role in me being me and trying to help other women in science to get better, to achieve their goals. So that was definitely one of them. And then in general, and professors too. I learned so much from every single one of them, but it was definitely challenging to feel like, why I'm the only one and why there are not many female or women in the same field of study.
Does anybody else want to go?
I've had a lot of experiences going back and forth being with all men because I was a forest firefighter in New Mexico for a few years, and there was one woman on the crew, and then she left, and it was just me. But and it does get tiring being with all men, to be honest. But then I went to graduate school and studied ecology, and then I was mostly with an all-female crew, out in the woods doing all the things. And then I switched over to forestry, and I don't do field work anymore, but it's mostly with a lot of men, and so that's changing as well. And I think just be open to people, or people who are open to you. Don't be afraid to lean on them. So, and people want to help you, or they want to, you more than you know. So, if you meet somebody and they offer you help, we'll take them up on it. Everyone sees themselves in you, and or see some aspect, or just says, I want to help that person get into it. And they don't expect you to know everything, so you don't have to think about preparing to know everything before you can talk to somebody. They just meet them where you are, because we all have to start somewhere. And some people, are able to, have scientists for parents and learn all sorts of things, and then other people aren't. They just start with an interest, and so that's okay. You got to start somewhere.
I can tell you about, so it's kind of related to how I got interested in science. So that original trip to the Mojave, which started me on this journey, I applied for it, and they already had 2 people and the professor going, and they were all men. And the housing situation wasn't really, as he considered it, set up to have a mixed or co-ed crew. And so he was really hesitant, and he told me this much later, but my advisor, so my just regular, undergraduate advisor for classes and whatnot, called him up and said, no, you need to take her with you. It's worth the trouble. And so he did, and he became actually one of my biggest advocates. And he told me this story of what happened. He said it changed his viewpoint of trying to make it work for women in science. And he actually became this wonderful mentor for women in science, even people that were behind me. And so, I consider that experience like one of the greatest benefits of being mentored, both by my just regular class, advisor. All she did was pick up the phone and just say a few words like, hey, try this. And it really made a huge difference in my life. So mentors aren't always people that are just, always right there beside you, but someone that'll stick their neck out for you, even for just a little bit. And it can make a huge difference in your life. It made a huge difference in my life.
Yeah, I also feel like I experienced people sticking out their necks for me quite a few times. I've been blessed with mentors who, decided to just take a chance on me. My graduate advisor being one that comes to mind, because straight out of undergraduate, I did not go into conservation ecology or wildlife conservation. I actually worked for a little while as a laboratory assistant, and my graduate advisor, I reached out to him and said, I'm really interested in joining your lab, and I want to go back to graduate school. And he didn't know me. I didn't come with any recommendations. But when we met and talked, he said, I think we'll be a good fit together. We'll be a good team. And, the rest is history. And he has not been the only one in my life either. My first boss at that laboratory assistant job, she encouraged me to go to graduate school. She knew that I was interested in getting back into conservation ecology and wildlife. And I don't think I would have made the step without her encouragement. And I'm in contact with both of them still today. So once you find somebody who's willing to take a chance on you, or just encouraging you to, pursue the path you want to, stay in touch with them. They're going to be great support throughout your career. And then of course that, my current supervisor and past supervisors, I talk to them all too still. So it's just really important to keep communicating with the people who are there and who are your support network.
I'll mention I've been so lucky, as many of you, that I've been able to find a lot of wonderful mentors at different places that I've been. I do remember when I was picking between PhD programs, I'd gotten into 2 different schools that I was choosing between and visited both of them. And at one school that was had a good very strong reputation, more prestigious school, I spoke with the other students who worked with the person I was going to work under. And they warned me, this person is very aggressive and doesn't support the women in his group as much. And it was a difficult relationship. And I ended up choosing the other school. And I'm so glad I did, because I worked with a mentor, Marguerite Madden, who's just fantastic and so supportive, and was one of those people who would fight for you and advocate for you and really trust you as well to make decisions and encourage what you're going to do, not try to micromanage your projects. But everything you all said resonated with me as well. And find those people, right? So you want to go and make sure you put yourself in an environment that is supportive as well.
So I guess I'm the last, and I'm going to agree with what Amber said. I don't have one person in particular, but I was very, very fortunate for both my master's and PhD that I was in the Institute of Ecology, which was at UGA, which was amazingly diverse and amazingly supportive. And at the time, there were many, many female faculty members that were astoundingly good. And I don't honestly ever remember having issues with GM female. Why am I here? Because it was such a wonderful place to be.
Very good. Thank you all so much for that. I'm going to kind of combine a few because we only have a few more minutes left. So I think a good question here would be, tell us about some of like your favorite part of your job or your favorite part of science, and then tell us some of your future plans. So kind of some of the research or even some of the projects that you are involved in, so that we can kind of all be excited for each other. Anybody want to start with that?
Let's start with you.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll start I speak up, but so I don't really do science on the ground anymore. I don't do science in a lab. I basically translate science. So, but what I'm excited about is that I get to take my science background and I get to bring it to different groups, and I collaborate a lot with different people because we want to keep all the privately owned forests in the South as forested land. And so we have a lot of big high level goals, and I get to do a lot of fun stuff thinking about that so that I can make a difference in what I care about. But and that's just to say that, you know, you might become a scientist in one respect and you might go in a different direction than being in the lab, but all that experience kind of adds up, and that's pretty exciting to me too, though I do miss being out in the field. You're muted, Michelle.
Sorry, thanks, Leslie. Does anybody else want to go?
I can go.
Okay.
So I do like research a lot. It's one of my passions, and one of them is, of course, teaching. So I think what excites me the most at this stage is seeing my students succeed. I see them getting jobs, or I see them getting to graduate school. We are still in contact. They share their projects with me. They share their jobs with me. that cannot make me more happy to see where they are going and where they are achieving their goals, and that makes me really happy. In terms of research, I think Maggie said that you cannot just stop. You keep having questions, and you keep wanting to do more research and find more about geology and the world around me. So I keep finding new projects, and then one of the recent one is a case, we call it medical geology. It's a newer field in geology where you look at the exposure of different earth material around you and what kind of effect, either good or bad, it might have on your health. So one of the projects we're recently working on is looking at North Georgia and then the exposure of asbestos and then how it can affect human health in the region. And so that's one of the latest that I'm working on.
Very good, thank you. Would anybody else like to go?
I could comment. There were two things that came to mind when you said, what do you enjoy? And they're actually kind of related. One thing I love in science when I'm teaching is intro students, and you first introduce a concept and you can see it click. You know, you see somebody's face like, oh, and they're putting all of these different, I love that. And then the other thing that came to mind is when I'm doing research, I really like data visualization, or, you know, you think there's a pattern and you're collecting all this information, and when you put it together and it kind of clicks for you, you know, you're able to come up with a scatter plot and you see the trend, or, you know, you come up with a map. I guess this last year with COVID, we can all think of all the different maps we've seen and the trends that you can pick out. And that sort of moment of realization, I absolutely love. And what I'm looking forward to doing in the future is continuing with the water quality work, and especially using some of the new technologies that are constantly being developed in geospatial. It's just incredible the amount of data that we have, the resolution of the satellites, how much you can see and how often they're collecting information. And we're going to have so much more data in 5 years than we have now even. So I'm really excited about all of that.
Very good. Anybody else want to go for this one?
Yeah, sure. So the thing that I enjoy the most about my job is going out into the field and getting, you know, boots on the ground and not only doing research in the field, but also interacting with the public and just getting out of my office. But I have two projects that I'm really looking forward to working on this year. One is sort of tied into the environmental review part of my job. We have a project in the state that is involving a relocation of a protected, state protected orchid species. So we're going to be relocating some plants this year to a safer area to safeguard that population. And I think it's really great that we're getting to do this. That's the conservation part of the job coming in, and it's always really exciting to be able to save a population like this. And then another project, our bat research sort of slowed down with the pandemic ongoing. And so one thing we're hoping to get to this summer is we're going to be cataloging bat houses around Athens and I think across the state. But in Athens specifically, we're going to be looking at doing emergence counts at these bat houses, where we're going to be counting the number of bats that come out of the houses at dusk as they emerge for their nightly foraging. And that's a really great way to, first of all, you know, sort of get a baseline or just get an idea of how many bats are using the bat houses we have put up around Athens. We have several agencies and even just private landowners who are putting up bat houses and trying to attract bats to their property to help with bugs and to help bats. So I think it will be a really great opportunity to, you know, get an idea of what types of bat populations we actually have locally, and then also to raise awareness for bat species in Georgia and to sort of get the public involved. We are going to be asking citizen scientists to help us out with this effort. You can find more on our Georgia DNR website. There's a little section on our bat roost monitoring or bat house monitoring project. So check it out.
Very good. Thank you. And then Margie or Angela, do one of y'all want to go?
I'll say something, but first I want to tell Maggie that I live in Madison County and I'll put up a bat house. Absolutely.
You're making a commitment right now.
Absolutely.
That would be awesome.
It would be, I would love, I don't see very many bats around my place anymore. I don't do big research. I haven't done big research in forever. I do small student projects, student research projects. And I guess the thing that I like the most is going out and playing in streams and seeing the critters that are there. And the thing that really makes me smile is when I have my students out there bent over looking at organisms that they found in the stream that they had no idea existed. Most of the students that take my invertebrate class are never going to be invertebrate biologists. They want to go to medical school or something. But to get them to realize that, and to get them to enjoy and understand the fact that we have some very, very important organisms out there that need protection. And this last year, I actually had a student write in an evaluation that I have a superpower. And the superpower is getting people to like bugs when they hated bugs before they started the class. And so I think that's what I really like, is just opening students' eyes to see what's out there. And then the small projects that I have are dealing with biodiversity. And so they extend their understanding of inverts to various places that we're looking at.
Margie, that's just one of your superpowers. I just cannot rest for you.
I make a really good chocolate cake too.
Angela, do you want to finish this off?
Sure. So I have to say that my very, very favorite thing is being out in the field. I just really enjoy that, no matter what we're doing, just being out there and seeing what's happening. A lot of my work is done on sites that are undergoing restoration, and that's one of my focuses. And so to see the changes that are happening in the environment and the way the animals are responding, that just gets me really excited and sparks all those questions about what's making the difference, what's driving this change. But I also really enjoy working with students. I had the opportunity to teach a couple of classes, and that was fantastic. But what I really loved was working with student researchers, so some undergraduate projects. Seeing them start out, going from, oh, I have to do this for my major, to, oh, this is so cool, and oh, look at this interesting thing that I found out, and oh, I found this paper and it's about what I'm doing. Just to see that change and that spark of life and interest. And again, some of them might go on to, go into the medical field. They're not going to work with amphibians like the other panelists said, but they've sparked that interest, and that can help them with lifelong learning. And that has been linked to so many good outcomes, both in social and for individuals, just having that spark. So I really do enjoy that quite a bit.
Very good. Thank you. I think Kate had a question from Facebook. Kate, do you want to ask that question?
Yes. So first off, Maggie, I wanted to say thank you for mentioning your, your science project with the bat houses, because one of the things I wanted to mention, just kind of to wrap up, is that, here at the Nature Center, we try to promote a lot of citizen science projects. And so getting people who maybe don't have a science background, or maybe have a science background but don't really get to use it, it's a good way for them to get out and do different things. So whether it's checking bat houses, monitoring streams with Adopt a Stream, or doing frog watch, I think it's a great way to get people involved. But the question I had actually was to Maggie about bat houses. And so Aaron's question was that he has a bat house in his yard that's on a 12-foot pole. It's freestanding. And he wants to know, is it more likely to enter it's going to enter a house if it's mounted on a building or on a pole? So what would you recommend?
Well, we recommend that the entry to the bat house stays free of obstacles. So mounted on a pole is good, because that means there's not going to be any obstacles in the way in terms of, like vegetation or like eaves on your house or or some sort of structure. But we have seen success with mounting on the side of the building too, and that's often a lot easier for people because then they don't have to go buy a separate pole. The most important thing is making sure that the bat house has 6 to 8 hours of sunlight in the day, preferably the morning sun, because what that does is that heats up the bat box itself. So you don't want the bat house to be in a lot of shade during the day because bats really enjoy a warm roost, and that's when you'll start attracting more than 1 or 2 or 3 is when you have an optimal roost. So having it in that sunlight is a little more important than where it's mounted, as long as it's mounted in an area where bats can actually get into the entry on the bottom of the bat house. So making sure that's free of vegetation or other structures is important too.
All right, thank you very much. All right, well, Michelle, I didn't have any other questions, but I did have people who commented to say thank you to everybody. Y'all are an inspiration, and I would agree. So thank you so much for joining our panel. And Michelle, I'm going to let you go ahead and give us our closing statement.
Yes, well, if we had time, Kate, I don't know if we do. I was just gonna, if anybody wants to say something to future scientists out there, we can do that real quickly. And I just want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you to all of you, of course, because I know most of you, and you guys have all been a big inspiration, and a lot of you are mentors to me, and I have enjoyed working with a lot of you, and it just I was very fortunate. I'm very fortunate to know most of you. So thank you so much for joining me today. And then I wanted to just kind of end it with you all trying to give some encouraging words to all those future scientists out there. So if anybody would like to talk about that, that'd be great.
I would say to find your people, to get connected with communities. The Nature Center is a great way locally, right? But also with technology nowadays, follow some scientists you love on Twitter. I know that sounds crazy, but there's so much great content out there and ways to get tied in and find your support network.
Yeah, I would say, start with your local Sandy Creek Nature Center. Michelle and Kate also have connections too. So if you don't even know where to start, swing by and say hello to Michelle and Kate or anyone there, or take any opportunities to volunteer at the Nature Center or go to the camps. Just talk to people and don't be intimidated. There are scientists that look like everybody. So I know we are all, I'm guessing from appearance, we're all white women here, but there are scientists that look like you everywhere. And if you need connections, we can find those connections. And people, and it doesn't matter where you come from or what you know now. If you're interested, you can get into it. So.
Yeah, I would like to also confirm, get involved. That's a really great way to figure out what exactly you want to do. If you don't know that yet, don't feel intimidated. We all spent, I feel like a few years figuring out what exactly we wanted to do before we got to where we are now. And you don't have to have it all figured out. That's what people like us are here for, to help you. And so get involved, talk to scientists, and you'll find your way.
Absolutely. And I would also say, don't listen to other people that tell you you shouldn't do it, or you shouldn't get dirty, or it's odd. If you enjoy it and it makes you smile, then follow your dream. Absolutely.
I would say don't give up. There's a lot of people that will tell you that, why are you doing that? How are you going to get a job? When I said I was going to get a degree in forestry and natural resources, that was a big concern for others, but not for me. So don't give up, and don't get discouraged when it gets hard. It will get hard, and that does not mean you don't belong there. And whether that's your high school chemistry class or organic chemistry, you just have to get past it and get help. Because there are others who are out there that want to support you and want to help you. And getting help doesn't mean that you're not capable. It means you're a good collaborator. And that's what science needs, is people who are willing to work together and ask for help. So you are definitely have a place, even when it gets hard.
Everyone said what I wanted to say. Also, I agree with all of you. Keep trying, and you will achieve what you want, for sure.
All right. And did anybody else have anything before we go? No? All right. Well, ladies, again, thank you all so much for joining us today. It has been a tremendous experience being able to listen to all of your stories today. And I hope that you all do wonderful things. I can't wait to talk to a lot of you again, because I know I'm going to see most of y'all soon. So thank you again. And thank you for everybody who's joining us on Facebook. And Kate, I think that we are finished, so we can go ahead and log off and say goodbye to everyone.
All right. And I just want to remind everybody, tune in throughout the day because we have some other sessions going on, which our nature journaling session will start in about 5 or 6 minutes. So if you are interested in that, check that out. But we have programs every hour throughout the day. So come and join us again. And thank you again, ladies. We appreciate you joining us this morning. Bye.
Thanks, Kate.
Everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks, everybody.
Kate. Thank you. Bye-bye.